So lately, I've been whistling on camera. A lot. It started as a gag. Could I whistle better over some tune on my Spotify playlist than the actual solo on the tune? And quickly grew in both scale and ridiculousness. But in the process, I stumbled on some fundamentals of human learning. And it got me thinking, what have I been getting wrong? Let's start at the end. Here I am, whistling along with Kurt Rosenwinkel's solo on The Cross. Here I am, whistling along with an Avishai Cohen solo from the SF Jazz Collection. Now, if you're choosing an instrument to express your jazz virtuosity, it's hard to do worse than whistling. The range is limited and doesn't line up well with any other instrument, except maybe alto sax. And articulation is a chore, since you don't have at your disposal any of the tonguing techniques a trumpet player or a sax player would use. What I'm saying is, bear with me, this started as a joke. Still, even some musical friends were impressed with my ability to learn and whistle solos on Instagram. So, how did I do it? The answer is going to seem mundane, but I promise I'm going somewhere with this. First, I'd copy the whole solo into GarageBand. Then I'd make a loop of the first part of the solo I hadn't learned yet. When I'd practiced that loop enough to learn it, I moved on. Each time I began a new loop, I whistled the entirety of the solo up to that point, relying on the recency of the new loop to keep it ingrained, and the repetition of the material leading up to that to keep it from dropping out. Got it? Which brings me to the second insight I gleaned casually from my whistle experiments. We've got bad intuition about the power of dumb rote repetition. From this brute force operation, I was able to get plenty of oohs, ahs, and hell yes. And a couple of dude, are you kidding me with the whistling, can we stop already? If I can achieve this in just a few minutes of focused practice, think about what someone could do with 10 years of focused practice like this, and you start to see how people can play Rachmaninoff concertos and wingsuit dive off of cliffs in Norway. But more broadly, so what? Well, it turns out that this brute force whistle experiment tracks with some science about human learning. In his book, The Talent Code, Daniel Coyle explores so-called talent factories. From tennis coaches who consistently produce world champions to the origins of some of Brazil's best soccer players. Coyle's thesis? Our brains are adaptable, like a smart power grid or the internet. And our learning comes from replacing what's analogous to, say, old rusty cables with new fiber optic cables. That's why you can walk down the street without losing your balance like it's nothing. But learning to shoot a bow and arrow will take all your attention. And any distraction will result in failure. That walking down the street network has been rebuilt again and again, and with the latest fiber optic cable. The bow and arrow network is new, and it's tin cans and string at this point. There's a brain chemical that insulates those networks, making them ever more efficient. It's called myelin. When we're learning properly, according to Coyle, we're doing what's called myelination, which leads to whistling insight the second. Myelination looks pretty boring in real life. So, if it's that simple, why is learning so hard? Well, by understanding this, we gain a fair amount of insight about how to coach well. Let me take you through it. Coyle's observations underpin my personal experience. You need enough repetitions, you need the right repetitions, and you need productive repetitions. Let's look at each of these in turn. If I hadn't whistled the passages I was trying to learn enough, I wouldn't have myelinated those circuits enough. And my solos would have been sloppy and underdeveloped, especially under the pressure of a performance. A good analogy is my jiu-jitsu game. If I haven't practiced leg drag passes enough, I shouldn't expect to hit them with any degree of regularity, especially against a resisting opponent. And from that, we can pull a coaching or teaching insight. Before you make a critique, make sure the problem isn't simply not enough repetitions. But I need to be whistling the right things too. Say I just practiced the wrong solo. I wouldn't expect to automatically be good at the Rosenwinkel one. This may sound trivial, but to use an analogy, it's astonishing how many people practice chess, expecting it to improve their mountain climbing. If you're a teacher or coach, and your student's doing enough repetitions, but still not improving, it's worth asking yourself, is he practicing the wrong micro skill? But it's even more granular than that, which brings us to the third principle. The repetition needs to be productive. The loops need to be the right length. They need to be long enough to make a meaningful phrase, but short enough that you're not biting off too big a chunk. Too long, and I'd be wasting time. Parallels with other disciplines are aplenty. Generally, you only want to practice one new skill at a time. And the key is choosing the loop. If you're learning to serve a tennis ball, you need to focus on chunks small enough to grasp them completely before moving on to other skills. Otherwise, the myelination won't work. You also need a tight feedback loop. If I'm whistling, I can tell immediately if I'm not with the recording. Watch how I adjust in real time. My brain just does this. Everyone's does. That's why you need either a coach or a falsifiable feedback mechanism. If you're trying to perfect a guard pass, it'll either work or fail, over enough time controlling for the skill and resistance of your opponents. If you're doing something more abstract like ballet dancing, you probably need a coach giving you feedback so you know what to adjust. Otherwise, the feedback loop won't be short enough. Let's round this out by thinking about how you might do it on the drums. Say you were trying to learn to play fills better. The first question to ask is, what's the relevant thing to learn if I need to play fills? You'd want to choose something very similar to what you hope to do in performance. Once you've found that, you'd want to make sure you were practicing that thing enough, whatever it was. As Bob Moses once told me, be prepared to sound bad 99 times so that you can sound good the 100th. Finally, you want to be careful to choose loops of the right length. This was particularly challenging with the Rosenwinkel solo, and there's a real art to getting a single loop that's maybe really short and then joining it together with another loop that comes later or before, and maybe then practicing a longer loop and then zooming in again to a transition between two loops. Anyway, I hope this lesson was a fun experiment to get you started thinking about accelerated human learning. Or failing that, at least an excuse for me to whistle at you for 10 minutes. Either way, no sales pitch in this one since I used plenty of other people's music in it, and I thank them for that and I'll link to it below. And in order for it to qualify for fair use, the purpose has to be non-commercial. But what you can do for me is leave a comment below. What was a time that you thought there was something too difficult for you to learn, but you overcame it and learned it anyway? Or a time you got caught whistling in public. See you next time.